It is 4:30 in the morning and we're headed to America's oldest national park. We're actually headed to 4 national parks, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. In what I would call a somewhat shocking development, we managed to get mostly packed last night, so we're pretty close to being ready to leave. When I want to leave, I don't know what to do with this information. First of many gas stops. We stopped a little earlier than I normally would. The dogs needed to use the bathroom, so did the people.
Someone needed coffee.
And yeah, someone else needed more coffee because, you know. A bit of a nerd moment. I was in the back boiling water to make my instant meal, and I was thinking, man, this is taking a long time, a lot longer than it usually takes. So I look at my electric kettle, which has the temperature readout, and I start thinking, man, it's been at 203 degrees for quite a long time. That's really weird. Wait a second. What's the altitude here? Yeah, it's 6,000 feet. There's a problem right there. Even though we left really early, we're not going to make it all the way there today. Much like Sedona, the plan is to drive basically until I get tired, then stop, sleep, get up, and then get to Yellowstone at a reasonable time tomorrow.
I don't know! Stop asking so many questions.
We made it to a rest stop about 2.5 hours from Yellowstone, and it's time to call it for the night, at least for a little while. Good night. I'll see you in the morning. Well, this ended up being a really nice place to stay. Really nice sunrise over there, but oh my goodness, there are a lot of bugs. So I'm gonna put this down, get back in the van, and try to make some coffee. All right, now that I'm a little more caffeinated and composed because of, you know, less bugs, I can catch you up to speed. We left yesterday early in the morning and headed north. We drove up through Tahoe and Reno, east on 80, and then north into Idaho. We were going to stay where we usually do on these types of trips, which was at a Love's, but it was really warm, like really hot. There wasn't a lot of space. It was loud. I mean, they're always loud, but. So I decided to drive and find an actual highway rest stop where we could, one, wait a little longer for the ambient temperature to drop a bit, and then two, have some more space so we could open the slide out in the camper and then open the windows. Turned out that worked really well. It was actually cool enough to get some sleep. Not great sleep, but, you know, sleep. And the sunrise was actually a pleasant surprise. The bugs, less than a pleasant surprise. All right, we actually got here ahead of schedule, so the plan now is to go into the park and do a lot of the drivey stuff today. So we dropped the trailer, but didn't really do a whole lot of camp, didn't set up a tent yet, and we are heading to Yellowstone, heading directly to the Lamar Valley to try to do some of the scenic driving, maybe hopefully see some wildlife, and maybe we'll see what else we have time to do. We've got enough food in the car for lunch and dinner, hopefully, I think. So we should be okay. Yellowstone was founded in 1872 and became America's first national park. It's got the most dense population of mammals in the lower 48 states, and we're on the drive right now to the Lamar Valley in hopes to see some of those mammals.
So far we've seen antelope, lots of bison, baby bison, probably a bear, and goats.
Oh, we did see goats.
Goats.
We haven't even done anything in this park yet other than drive around, and it's already up there as one of my favorites. Well, we made it to Old Faithful. We're at the visitor center right now. Yellowstone sits on top of a massive supervolcano called the Yellowstone caldera. And that's what's responsible for the park's geothermal features like the geysers. The lava underneath the ground heats up the water, which then turns into steam and pressure builds, and eventually it can't hold the pressure anymore, and then you have an eruption. Old Faithful, where we are right now, erupts roughly every 90 minutes. Well, it's scheduled to erupt in about 10 minutes, but we're also scheduled to have thunderstorms for the next hour and a half. I don't mind rain, the camera minds rain, but everybody minds lightning.
When Old Faithful erupts, the water reaches 90 to 184 feet. It erupts almost every 90 minutes, and the eruption lasts as long as a minute and a half to 5 minutes.
It's been a long 2 days. Old Faithful and the geothermal features of the park are pretty cool, but for me there's just something a little bit different about the other parts of the park. It's really hard to put my finger on what it is. For the national parks that I've been to, I kind of think about them in two ways. The grandeur, so when you go into Yosemite, you come down through Owona, through Tunnel View, and then you're hit with this ridiculous view, right? That's kind of awesome. That's the spectacle I'm talking about. But there's way more than that to Yosemite. There's parts that just make me want to explore. When we hiked the John Muir Trail to the Panorama Trail a few years back, that was just really awesome. We got out into the middle of nowhere, like we just didn't see any people around, and it was just us and nature, and I really felt like I wanted to explore what Yosemite had to offer. That's what made me want to keep going back there. Sure, Glacier Point is awesome, Tunnel View is awesome, but what draws me back over and over again is that desire to explore the wilderness there. Yellowstone has the same in the sense that it has that spectacle, like the geothermal events, and it also brings that sense of wanting to explore. When we drove down into Lamar Valley today, I expected it to be cool, I expected to see lots of wildlife, and for sure, that was the case, but I don't know that I expected as much of this desire to explore all of Yellowstone. We've only been here for a day and I already want to come back for 2 weeks. And Crystal will say, oh, you're going to think the same thing when we go to Grand Teton and Bryce Canyon and Zion. And I can see that for Grand Teton, but I'm not sure that I'm going to think that for Bryce and Zion. Don't get me wrong, I really think that I'm going to love Bryce and Zion, but I expect them to be more unidimensional for me in the spectacle category. But that's for later me. As for now, it is bedtime. Well, almost bedtime. We have to figure out what we're going to do tomorrow, and then it's bedtime. But as far as you're concerned, it's bedtime. Good night. Good morning. It's day 3 of the trip, our first full day here in Yellowstone. The altitude is 6,600 feet. Where we are right now, a lot of things change at altitude. 6,600 isn't that extreme in the grand scheme of things. We were up over 9,000 yesterday. We'll be up over 10,000 at points on this trip. When you're used to sleeping at sea level like us, you don't sleep as well at altitude because the oxygen availability just isn't there. It also changes things like your heart rate, your breathing, your nose, but more importantly, it affects the coffee. More specifically, the water. Water, where we live, boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. Here, at almost 7,000 feet, the water boils at 201 degrees. There just isn't enough atmospheric pressure on top of the water to keep it from boiling. So to put it another way, the hottest water can ever be here is 201 degrees. Anything hotter than that, it's not water anymore, it's steam. Steam can get as hot as it wants until it becomes plasma, but that's a different story. Okay, physics lesson over. Plan for the day. I don't really know. Mom and the kids don't really want to go and do a ton of driving, which, you know, I don't blame them, considering we drove, I don't know, 20 plus hours in the past 2 days. They were understandably getting anxious and rowdy, just being kids, and that's fine. We had to play a game, so you can find the most animals. Suddenly they were concentrating on what was outside again and what was around them, which is kind of the point of being here. There were so many bison, we ended up changing the rules of the contest to say, like, look, bison don't count anymore. And then the kids were sick of seeing bison. which is crazy because, you know, the novelty of having never seen one of these before to them having seen like thousands of them, you know, that swing happened in about 20 minutes. Well, we're trying to do the Ferry Falls Trail to the Grand Prismatic Overlook Trail. And I navigated to what Google said was the trailhead, but this is clearly not it. My sense of direction tells me it's several stops that way. All right, take two. We think we actually found the correct trailhead this time. Couldn't park at it, so we just kind of went down the road a little bit farther, as is our style. This trail definitely offers a much better view of Grand Prismatic Spring than the little boardwalk thing does. Though the boardwalk is definitely a cool thing to do, worthwhile, particularly if you're mobility impaired. But even if you're not, still worth doing.
Some of our water also may not look like it's hot, but it really is. It's very important not to stick your fingers in the water.
All right, finally got a free moment and some weather to come set up a tent. You know, for the last 2 nights we're here. Kids had a blast today. The hike was pretty awesome once we finally found it. The trails in Yellowstone are not marked. The parking lots, the trails, good luck. They're not marked well on maps either. So I can read a map just fine, but when the things aren't on it that I need to find, that's a problem. But anyway, once we did finally find the trail, it was great. Cool scenery, really easy hike. Now I'm trying to decide between setting up a fire and relaxing or just going straight to bed. I love my van and van life. But one thing about it is not a very big space. So you, particularly if you have 5 humans, really need to stay organized. And that is not one of our strengths. But we're trying.
Speak for yourself.
She says speak for yourself. I am speaking for myself, but I'm absolutely also speaking for her.
No, you're not.
The difference here is that I know that I'm disorganized. She has the dangerous combination of thinking that she's organized, but not actually being.
Lies.
Okay, so the plan for today. Mom, Crystal, and the kids are in at the Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center, but the dogs clearly aren't allowed in there, so I'm taking them for a walk. So because this trip has mostly been about national parks, the dogs don't really have a lot to do. So they're, let's just say, a little excited to be out and doing things. For such a small town, West Yellowstone has a lot going on, and if you're going to make a trip to Yellowstone, and particularly if you're staying in West Yellowstone in Montana, I would recommend baking some time into your itinerary to explore the town and what it has to offer, because they pack a whole lot into a small footprint. And the bike shop here is also a coffee shop, so that's winning, right? I mean, right. So traffic at Yellowstone is definitely a thing. It can be caused by a number of things. Obviously, there are a lot of people who want to go to Yellowstone, so where there are people, there are traffic. But to complicate things, the wildlife here just kind of do what they want, obviously. Bison might just be standing in the road. Or there might be a giant family of grizzly bears off to the side of the road that's causing everyone to stop and look at them. I say this to say it can be unpredictable. It's going to take longer than you think it's going to take, and be ready to just sit without moving for extended periods of time. We were in downtown West Yellowstone just now at the Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center, and that's like, I don't know, a quarter mile from the gate, and it took us about 20 minutes to get to the gate from there. We were hearing people talking about how traffic is backed up in every direction for 10 miles. So while it took us 20 minutes to get to the gate from a quarter mile away, it probably would have taken us 3-4 hours to get there from our campground. Another major tip, make sure that you not only bring, but also remember and use bug spray. While we were on our hike yesterday, I was wearing long sleeves and a hood, but I still managed to get bitten all over the place by mosquitoes. I was wearing a very, very thin hoodie, a sun hoodie, and they totally bit right through it. My shoulders, my back are just covered in bites. It is not comfortable. The killer is we had bug repellent, but left it in the car. The Grand Canyon of Yellowstone is surprising for me in that it's turning out to be one of the highlights of the trip. I think the views are pretty cool. I want to come back here and do more of the hikes. There are a couple sets of falls that are really awesome. There are a bunch of really great overlooks and scenic views. There are some short walks. You can drop down to the lower falls. It's a round trip of less than a mile. And then there are some much longer hikes that you can do that take you down closer to the water.
Daddy?
One of the kids, and I won't call them out, but they'll know when they watch this back, just became a total grump for no reason. But this is for sure one of the highlights of the park so far. Well, I set up the bike with every intention of riding, but it was already after 7, and I had to set up the fire, and then I was on hot dog duty, and then s'more duty, and now it's just lonely. Good morning. It's cold. We have to tear down the tent and get out of here. Let's get moving. We're on our way to Jackson, Wyoming to the Grand Tetons, but to get there we have to go through Yellowstone. So currently back in that Yellowstone traffic. Yes, I know the glasses are ridiculous. They were all I could find in an uncaffeinated state. And speaking of uncaffeinated state, we actually had to buy coffee today. Didn't have time to make it. We just got to Jackson, got to the campsite, dropped the camper, I got the power hooked up, the water, the sewer, and then I went to put out the slide, and then I realized the slide was broken, and I absolutely lost my stuff. This is RV life. Things break. It happens. They're expensive. We're gonna go get propane, and then figure out what's going on. There's a bike trail from where I'm staying that goes all the way to Lake Mary. I don't love that I'm starting with a ripping tailwind, but I'm on my bike. I'm hoping that this helps me to clear my head and can get back to dealing with the RV problems when I get back. Well, today was interesting. The damage to the camper is going to be expensive, and that's bad. But it caused us to sort of stop and relax for a bit, which is actually kind of good. I was freaking out a bit because this is ruining the vacation, whatever. But in every way other than the cost, it's actually made it better. We've kind of had our foot to the floor, like fully on the gas since we started, and it hasn't been at all relaxing. It's been a great vacation. It's been a great trip so far. We've done a lot of really cool things, but it's been so packed with stuff that we haven't had a chance to just relax until today. If you call waiting around for insurance adjusters and trying to get an RV fix relaxing, as stressful as this is for me and for Crystal and for my mom, the kids are kind of oblivious to it, and they're having a great time. They're loving every minute of being at campgrounds, being in the pool, going on the hikes. It's just been a great time for them, which is what I've been trying to keep going. Anyway, keeping that in the back of my mind is what has allowed me to keep this thing moving forward, but it hasn't been easy. All right, all things considered, that was a pretty good day. I know that sounds weird for all the bad stuff that happened and, you know, waiting on insurance and everything, but really it was. But we have an early day tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good one, so lights out. Well, that did not go well. We had a mobile RV repair guy come out, and he made it way worse. So after a major meltdown followed by a minor meltdown and then another major meltdown, I went to bed. Aided by a slightly clearer head and a lot of coffee, I decided to call Good Sam roadside assistance, which if you aren't an RVer, it's like AAA, but for RVs. They're supposed to be here in an hour. Who knows what's going to happen, but we're going to play it by ear. Well, we're no closer to having a solution for the camper. So while we're waiting to be called back from insurance and RV repair places, we decided to check out downtown Jackson, do a little shopping, and maybe get the kids some ice cream. All right, the plan this morning is to get an early start, and for us, she's over there somewhere, to ride into the park today and do some sightseeing, then get back somewhat early still, so that we can all, the whole family, drive back in, check out some of the sites, hit the visitor center, and then that's basically it. A pretty easy day. It's our last day here in Grand Teton before we head to Utah. We were saying we wanted to go here, but we didn't know where it was, and we took this little road offshoot off of the bike trail, and well, we're here, and this is awesome. There's a 20-mile paved bike trail all the way from Jackson to Jenny Lake and Grand Teton. Even if you're not a cyclist, and that sounds like a long way, I highly recommend it. You can rent an e-bike from a local shop, and it's not that much work. If you want a little more mileage and you don't mind riding on the road, there's an offshoot that takes you about 10 miles out of the way on Antelope Flat Road toward one of the most iconic photo spots in all the Grand Tetons. In addition to coffee, I also quite like dark chocolate. And there's a chocolatier or chocolate maker here in Jackson that I want to check out. We had planned planned on doing a pretty long hike around Jenny Lake and then up to Inspiration Point and Hidden Falls, but we're kind of short on time. So instead, we took the ferry across the lake and just a relatively short hike to Inspiration Point and Hidden Falls. There's a whole lot more behind me that I would really love to explore. That's gonna have to be on a different trip. It's 4 in the morning. We slept in the van on the street in Jackson because we only had one spot in the RV camp. Today is a drive day. I'm going to need lots of coffee. Well, we got out 15 minutes later than I wanted to. I'm going to count that as a win. I don't think we woke too many people up. Anyway, on the road now to Utah. We have, however, made a slight deviation from our plans because of the camper issues. So we're taking a hard right from glamping and moving straight into the whole resort kind of thing. All right, the reason I wanted to get going so early today was because due to the slide out fiasco, our stay in Jackson/Grand Teton was extended by a day, and that ate into our time in Bryce Canyon. Fortunately, Zion and Bryce are really close to each other, so the plan was we'll leave Grand Teton super early and drive through Bryce today on the way to Zion. We made it to Bryce Canyon, but we can't do anything in the northern part of the park because we've got the trailer and the dogs. So we're doing the Southern Scenic Drive. There are a bunch of really cool viewpoints that you can see basically from the road, which gives Mom a chance to take in some of the sights.
This is ramen. And normally the ramen is flat. But right now we're basically at this Bryce Canyon overlook in Utah, and the elevation is 9,115. And because the elevation is so high, it causes the ramen to puff up and look like it's about to explode. Even though it's not going to explode, I'm scared to open it because I think it will. Even though I know it's not. It's just how my brain works.
We are in absolute nowheresville, Utah. In the last 100 miles, we've driven through 2 tiny little towns, each of which had a single pump gas station. There is nothing here. That was a very long day of driving, but Bryce Canyon was pretty cool. Tomorrow, I think we're going to check out some of the scenic drives in Zion. Maybe just do a little bit of exploring on the shuttle into the canyon, but not hiking the narrows. But for now, it is way past bedtime. Good night. So we're staying at a place called The Dwellings in Laverton, Utah, which is right outside the park. Really great access to the park. There are tiny homes, which are really cool. The view is awesome. Another nice feature about the place we're staying is that it is walking distance to a coffee roaster. So I'm going to take full advantage of that. I love tent camping, I love RV camping, but there is definitely something to be said for being able to shower and shave in something other than a communal campsite bathroom. Well, we didn't do much today other than drive around, but the roads were really nice. We did all the driving you can do in Zion, which is not the canyon. It's going up through the Mount Carmel Tunnel toward the east entrance and back down. There's some really awesome scenic overlooks. We saw some bighorn sheep, and my mom got to see as much of the park as she could reasonably see. After that, we went to pick up our gear for tomorrow because we're hiking the Narrows. Morning, early start today. We're hiking the Narrows. We got to the shuttle stop at around 5:45 to try to get the first bus, which leaves at 6. But we will probably not get the first bus because the line is already too long. But it's moving, so gotta go.
I could do this without my foot hurting at all. That is my toe.
Well, we did make it onto the first bus, and we're here at the start of the Narrows at the Temple of Sinala. It starts with a 1-mile paved river walk, and then we hop into the river. We're an hour and a half in, about 2 3/4 miles, and stopping to take our first snack break. The water's pretty cold, but it's not that cold. The air is still pretty cold, but it's gonna get up to like 100 degrees today, so I think it's gonna be pretty warm on the way back. This is a crazy hike. The canyon walls just go straight up on either side of you, and it's really, really cool. It's almost 9 o'clock. We've been hiking for a little over 2 hours, about 4 miles, and we're finally getting our first glimpses of the sun. Everything behind us is lit up in this really awesome golden glow. And then in front of us, we're getting these crazy bright lights onto the canyon walls. All right, 2.5 hours in, almost 5 miles, and we've made it to the first split off the main trail, and we're now walking up a pretty narrow slot canyon. I don't know if you can tell, but it's only about 15 feet wide right now. It is super narrow and very, very cool. Okay, we're 6.5 miles in. The sun is now properly out, at least in this part of the canyon. Stop for another snack break, more water, and kind of enjoying the warmth of it. It's been a pretty cold hike so far, but it's gonna get a lot warmer on the way back. All right, 10 miles in, we're back to the paved trail. There's one deep part, comes up to about my stomach, but other than that, it's either dry or shallow. Ankle deep, knee deep. That was a lot of fun. For 10 miles, the kids are still surprisingly energetic, but they did spend the last 5 hours in the water, so, you know, there's that. All right, we made it back to the van. Final stats, 11 miles, a little over 5 hours. A whole lot of fun. Well, today was pretty awesome, but we are all exhausted and we are leaving for Mammoth tomorrow. Currently there's a crazy sandstorm behind us and it is very loud, very windy. Everything on the patio is blown over. We're gonna call it for the night. Good night. Good morning. It was kind of a crazy night. The wind dust storm has died down significantly. We still got another 2 hours of high wind warning, but let's check out the aftermath. Over 100 in Zion yesterday and in the 30s last night here in Mammoth. Quite a big difference. Note the gloves. Unlike the other stops, we don't have a ton of things planned here in Mammoth. There are a couple things we want to go see and go do, but it's not a national park. It's not like we feel rushed here, which is why we made it the last stop. This is the actual relaxing part of the trip. Right now we're just going to head over and get some coffee, get the dogs off for a walk. Mammoth Lakes is a resort town, pretty popular for skiing, but in the summer, it's still pretty popular because the weather's great and lots of great mountain biking. There's also pretty great road biking and gravel biking. There are a couple bike events that are here. The Mammoth Tough Gravel Fondo, the Mammoth Fondo, which is a road fondo. It's just on the other side of Tioga Pass from Yosemite. There are lots of campgrounds here, lots of biking, multi-use trails, lots of things to do. Stella Brew is one of my regular stops every time I'm here in Mammoth. There are a lot of good coffee shops here, and this is definitely one of them. But I like Stella Brew because it's got a great vegan breakfast burrito. It's also got muffins, cookies, all sorts of really tasty snacks. But mostly, it's about the coffee. Mammoth Lakes is one of my absolute favorite places on Earth because it combines what I love about two of my other favorite places, Lake Tahoe and Yosemite. Like Lake Tahoe, Mammoth also has lakes, but it also shares with Yosemite the Eastern Sierras. So you get the grand mountains of the Eastern Sierras. I mean, technically Tahoe's in the Sierras too, but you get the same Sierras that are home to Yosemite, just the other side of them, plus the lakes like in Tahoe with way fewer people. Mostly I just love the vibe. It's a place to come and relax, really great place to ride your bike, hike, but also kind of just do nothing. So what you're seeing right behind me is Horseshoe Lake. It sits at about 8,900 feet above sea level. There are 3 lakes up here. There's Horseshoe Lake, Mamie Lake, and Lake Mary. There are campgrounds up here, places to ride horses, ride your bikes, hike. There's actually a hike up Mammoth Pass that starts right here. If you're in the Mammoth Lakes area, I would highly recommend checking this area out. Lake Mary, Lake Mamie, and Horseshoe Lake. Another thing I love about Mammoth is that unlike national parks, it's very dog friendly. If you've got furry friends, they're allowed on many of the trails, again, unlike national parks. And if you do want to see Lake Mary or the other nearby lakes, there's a bike path that goes from town all the way up there. And if the climb sounds too tough to make, there are a bunch of shops that rent e-bikes. Some of them even have seats on the back to take your kids. There's even a cool little waterfall that you would totally miss from the road. I highly recommend the bike route. I can't believe it's already been 2 weeks and today's our last day here. We are just finishing up our walk back from ice cream, and then we're gonna give it an early night in bed. Really kind of just try to get things ready for getting on the road tomorrow. But it's been a really good trip. Highs, lows, everything in between. But by far, the highs more than make up for the lows. But as soon as we get back to the camper, we gotta start getting ready for departure tomorrow. So that's all for tonight. See you tomorrow. Good morning. It's travel day. Quiet hour, so need to be quiet. But we're gonna head over, get some coffee, and get the dogs for a walk before a long day in the car. Well, we're on our way home and currently in line to get into our 5th national park of the trip, Yosemite, which is actually the most direct route from Mammoth back to the Bay Area. Fortunately, Tioga Pass opened last weekend, otherwise we would have had to go down and around into Southern California. Tioga Pass goes up to almost 10,000 feet, so there is often snow late into the spring and, in this case, the summer. I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly how much we fit into this trip. It felt like one minute we were watching bison cross the road in Yellowstone or riding through the Grand Tetons, and then the next minute wading through the Narrows in Zion. Every spot we stopped on this trip had something unique to offer. Yellowstone felt massive and wild, the Grand Tetons were serene and peaceful, and Zion was really all about the Narrows, which is for sure one of my favorite hikes. Bryce was just otherworldly. The hoodoos looked like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But Mammoth might low-key be my favorite stop on the trip, and I'm not alone. My whole family loves it there too. There's just something about that place that makes me want to be there all the time. And of course it wouldn't be a real RV trip without things going really wrong. From the RV slide-out disaster to the mosquitoes, which still make me itch thinking about them, and the traffic in Yellowstone, because what's more authentic than a grizzly bear causing a 10-mile backup? After 2 weeks on the road, I feel like we barely scratched the surface on what any of these places have to offer, and I'd love to go back and spend a lot more time at each. If you made it this far, drop a comment down below. Let me know, what's the best road trip you've ever been on, and what's your dream destination? And if you like this video, there's plenty more adventure coming. Make sure you subscribe. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.